to do a video on this. I never really talked that much about, I never really talk much about dating other races of men. I really don't. I do talk about it, but then when I do, it's kind of like, a lot of people don't like to hear it, you know, and I can't help my experience, and I can't help my own personal preference, you know. I've said this over and over again to both sides, it's a major reason why divestment doesn't really work with me because they always complain about black men, how it is to be with black men. In my experience, I've never had any issues with black men. Okay, I've never had any issue with black men. I've never had black men say like that something was like they're not really negative in my opinion. They're not negative on my blackness, honestly. They aren't. The ones I find more negative on my blackness are Hispanic men, being completely honest. And I understand why that is. Think of it. If you can find someone who is your own race, with your own skin tone, or with my skin tone for that matter, why would anyone go with someone who is outside of their race? You know what I mean? Like, black women, they have their appeal for being, having their own phenotype, right? I have my own phenotype as a black woman, right? But when you are, for example, not very dark skinned, then you are basically left with having an appeal towards people who don't have your own complexion. But you can't really get that appeal towards people who are your complexion or outside of your race, for example. So it's like all you have is a connotation of blackness. So then it's kind of on display. Your blackness is on display. And the negativity of you being black is on display, And so, for me, that's a major problem. I don't really find much of a problem with black men in this regard. I don't. The only people who have been actually preferential towards my hair was black men. Just saying. Um, and it's not even, like, for me, in my experience, it's kind of like Hispanic men are confused, from my perspective. Now, white men are better, honestly, because, opposites attract, and you can get that appeal, but you can't get opposites attract towards people who are your own complexion. So obviously I can't get a brown Mexican to find opposites attract in a black woman who has the same complexion as him. Now, I know some people say they do, like Danielle was talking about how she gets the appeal for Indian men, who, Indian men have her complexion, as a brown-skinned black woman. So it's like, there are some people who do that, but for me, it just doesn't work. It really doesn't, And my best bet of people outside of my race is white men, That's majorly why I've only dated white men, largely, They're the only ones who really, treat me like an option, Well, I feel like Hispanic men, they almost act like black women. The only use for a black woman is her big butt. And considering I don't have a big butt, then, what is the use? So, I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of like, from my perspective, people always talk about, they always talk about how black men are so negative towards black women. And for me, it's like, I've noticed more negativity from Hispanic men, if anyone, really honestly, than black men, honestly. Hispanic men, to me, it makes sense anyway in their culture. They're supposed to make their race better. That means that they have to improve their race. That means they can't be with black women. They have to be with white women or Hispanic women, specifically lighter skinned Hispanic women. And there's something I think Cardi B even mentioned how, um, they don't prefer, like people who may have a phenotype similar to what you would think is similar to maybe a mulatto or like a Dominican or something of that nature, darker Dominican. Many of them don't have a preference towards them, but have a preference towards lighter um, Hispanics. So I don't know. It's just my perspective. Generally, like I've given Hispanic men a chance, but it's just like, at the end of the day, I always find them asking my race first off, and then, acting like it's such a big deal what my race is. And if I'm only black, like that's a bad thing, you know. Like, there can't be any beauty in blackness alone, you know. And I mean, I've seen that with black men too. But I just see it more with Hispanic men more openly. Like black men, they might say it, but you can actually hush them up, honestly, on that. Then there's some black men who actually like being black. I think people always say all black men hate being black. I don't think they all do. I really don't. But yeah, this is just a few thoughts basically on interracial dating. I don't know. I just have always found more problems, it seems like, with Hispanic men than black men, honestly, when it comes to these issues, honestly, and sometimes white men, honestly. It depends on the white man. Some white men don't like black women, but they like women of color. Like that guy who was saying he had a toaster for like, what color he dates or whatever. Some white men are like that. And then some white men want basically people of women of color, but they don't really want black women. And so then they might choose a mixed girl, or they might choose a black woman just because they couldn't find a person of color. But they don't really want that. Sometimes. That's what I encounter. Now, I'm not saying always. Like I said, sometimes it's the opposites attracts thing. And even then, I always feel kind of insecure about that because, I mean, like, I'm not the darkest, black person. And so then it's always like there's always a dark skinned black woman who could actually do better than me at that. It sucks being in the middle, honestly. But yeah, and this is my first video with my face in it, but I just wanted to do it because I just felt like it. So yeah, thanks for watching and bye.